You know, my whole life, I was told that the US is the greatest country on earth. But the first time I came to Europe, everything I thought I knew completely changed. I booked my flight from San Francisco to Helsinki, and I did not know what to expect. Honestly, I thought Helsinki was going to be a downgrade from the US because I'd never been there, and I'd been taught to think that the US was the greatest country ever. But I just remember the first time I arrived, I took a taxi from the airport to the hotel, and right away, the first thing I noticed was I did not feel a single pothole after driving for around 20 to 30 minutes. And I was just like, whoa, that's very weird because in the US, you know, most places you go in the US, is a pothole and the driving conditions are very uneven and you're always bumpy. And then I remember just waking up, walking around the city. Infrastructure was just the most beautiful I've ever seen in my life. And that's when I realized that, okay, I have been lied to. Even just walking around, I felt extremely safe because I learned that the risk of violence is extremely low in these countries. You can walk around at 12 a.m., 11 p.m., no problem. Because, you know, even back in California where I'm from, I still felt very unsafe at times, even though I was in safe places. For some reason, everything to me just felt like it completely worked. You know, the people were extremely kind, very happy, smiling, walking around all the time, just being so social. And this was such a big change for me because in the US, you know, people aren't as social as you think. Being in Europe, in Helsinki, it just changed my mind completely on this. I remember after spending a couple, days in Europe in Helsinki, I was returning back to the US, and when I returned, it just felt like I had flipped a switch. When I got back, immediately when I stepped into the airport, it just felt wrong. It didn't feel right. It felt chaotic and busy, and everyone was stressed and upset. Infrastructure wasn't maintained well, it smelled bad, it wasn't very that nice. This really just messed with me because I kept thinking, man, I need to go back to Europe. Like, I'm in love with this place. But after that trip, when I flew back to the US, I felt something I would have never thought. This deep emptiness. Like I just stepped out of the life that I was supposed to be living and back into a world that no longer felt like mine. It was strange because nothing had changed at all. I went back to the same routine, same streets, and same life. But it all suddenly felt smaller, like my world had just shrunk overnight. Everything I'd once seen as normal now felt loud, chaotic, and just disconnected. And you know what's crazy? It didn't just happen once. Every single time I left Europe after that, I felt it again and again and again. This just quiet sadness in my chest. That's when I realized how much traveling actually meant to me. I mean, think about it. You have so many of these beautiful cities and countries and all over the world that you can travel to. And I was just like, what am I doing with my life? I have to experience this. So I had been living in California for almost 10 years of my life. Playing tennis every day. I was working out at the gym. I was hanging out with my friends. I was working a bunch of different jobs at the airport, Joe and the Juice, grocery stores. But even with all of that, I still felt like I needed a big change. Because if I kept staying there, I would have never experienced anything new. You know, I just stay in this bubble thinking the world was one way. When in reality, it's so much bigger than that. If we fast forward 2 years later, luckily, I actually met my now fiance. And at the time, she was an exchange student from Norway going to college in the US. And that's when I knew that was my opportunity. You know, this is my chance now to change my life and to go to Europe. We did long distance for a while, of course. And, she visited me a lot in the US. And then there was just one time where I just said, it's time to go to Norway. I did not know what to expect from Norway. I mean, I've never been. It was my first time, I didn't know if I was going to like it or if I was going to hate it. And I was honestly pretty scared. But I remember just getting on that flight. I booked a one-way ticket. Yes, I was very, very scared. But I remember arriving in Norway late at night and just being blown away by this place from the very first time I arrived. I mean, the airport was so smooth, so efficient. The public transportation to get from the airport was extremely clean, extremely modern, very, very smooth. It just blew me away. And after going to sleep and waking up the next day, I remember walking around Oslo and wow, I mean, the architecture in this place. I mean, you have statues carved onto the buildings, the residential apartments. And I was just thinking, is this out of a movie? Like, there's no way this place exists. And I just remember even walking around, even late at night, and feeling so safe. Like, it was incredible to me. That's when I knew that I'm gonna stay here. I'm going to stay in this place and not go back to the US because it's too good of an opportunity to not take it. You get so much benefits at such a low cost of living, compared to where I was coming from in Silicon Valley in California, where living costs are through the roof. Through the roof. And here, it was just such a better deal. We started building something real, but piece by piece, we ended up staying here. And honestly, it was exactly the change I was looking for. So yeah, to be honest, I never expected my life to turn out like this. But what I do know is that every single time I came back to Europe, it felt more like me and me every single time. And I don't know exactly where this path is going to take me. So I don't have all the answers. It made me realize that the world is way bigger than I ever thought. All I did was just come to Europe for one short trip, and somehow that changed everything in my life. Just an announcement at the end of the video, guys. Channel memberships are now live, and I could not be more excited. So if you guys want to support me and the videos and help me on this journey, you can join up next to the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. If not, just give it a like, subscribe, and comment. I appreciate every single one of you guys. You guys are amazing. I love you all. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.